Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the Xbox Series X. And yes, this is kind of a different video that I'm doing. Instead of doing my usual setup that I do on my computer, I thought it would be better to use my phone at the moment and actually show you how the Xbox Series X actually handles, because it's very different from telling you how it works out, kind of like reading the articles online and actually just being like, okay, so this is what all the teraflops are. This is its SSD and everything. It's kind of easier to actually show you. So that way it kind of makes sense when I'm actually talking about what I mean when it's like, okay, the UI is faster. Getting into games are faster. Loading times are faster. Performance feels better when you're actually playing this Xbox. So let's kind of get into it. All right, so here is the console. And as you can tell, it's a big freaking rectangular fridge shaped thing. And at first, when I had seen that they were going to be doing this, I'm like, okay, that's kind of strange. But I mean, you see it in comparison to the PlayStation 4 Pro. I am an equal opportunity gamer, but I wanted to get into the Xbox with this next gen. And as you can see, I have the most amount of space that I can, so that way it's got proper ventilation. And this, you can see it's got that kind of green tinge in the top, and that's the big boy fan that is really amazing at cooling this thing off. It is really quiet. And an interesting thing that happens is I think this thing shuts down faster than even like the hard drives that I got connected to it. And of course, you see I got my extra space there because this comes with 1 terabyte SSD, which means you get about 800 or so gigs because of what the OS kind of takes up with as well. And that's part of the reason why I went with the Series X, because with the Series S, one, it's all digital, and two, you only get 512 gigabytes of the SSD, which means you get about like 300 some gigs. And with how big everything is pretty much being nowadays, game wise, I kind of wanted to deal with this. So you mainly have to run into the PC problem of, okay, you find out what thing is going to be optimized for the Series X, you put that on the internal, and optimize your stuff that way. So let's kind of get into this. Gotta get my remotes, and I want to show you how fast this thing turns on. All right, let's do that. And let's switch over to the correct input. Yeah, I usually mute my TV because of how loud the Xbox sound is. Now, granted, the Series X's boot up sound is not as loud as the Xbox One X. That one would have blasted me back into like a whole other room. So, as you can see, we're now up, and it's a lot faster. Sometimes I would have to wait a vast longer time for my console to actually boot up. So you're like, okay, I'm actually in the game faster now. And as we can see, we also have the new Xbox Series X controller. And we've got, it's pretty much the same, except it's got a better D-pad that's more clicky. It's actually got texturization on the grips. If it can zoom in on that. There we go. And also on the triggers. And it actually is a USB-C connection. So that kind of had to change how I did the plan charge, which kind of sucked. But I mean, when you're gaming, you want to charge it up as much as possible. And you see how different it is from, this is like the first Xbox One controller. It, of course, D-pad. very kind of more slick, no texturization, kind of makes a little bit more sound as you're kind of gripping it, whereas this one is kind of more solid, kind of sturdier kind of build quality. This is kind of the mid one. I had to get one because the A button was getting a little bit weird, but you can even tell with this one, its seams are a little bit stranger than the new one, and its grip is just different kind of quality than this. So I've been really happy with what they've been able to do with the controller because it just kind of feels like a better kind of refinement for playing. And granted, it's got the share button and everything, which I actually have done nothing with so far. Because whenever something happens, it's usually just kind of strange and out there. And I'm like, I didn't know that was going to happen. So let's get into showing like a couple of games on this thing. So I'm going to first pop in an original Xbox game. And you're like, what? You're going to put an original Xbox game in? And I'm like, yeah. Yeah. Because this can play original Xbox games, 360 games, Xbox One games, and those that are for the Series X and S. So let me see how I can do this here. Trying to do this one-handed is kind of weird. All right. And as you can see, that is booting up the original Xbox style, which is kind of cool. Jesus. That was even faster than I'd even thought. God dang. But as you can see, that just popped up. You can create your profile, start playing through it and everything. Alright. But of course, since you're doing this on a new console, if you haven't already synced up everything that you've done from previous consoles, you'd have to have that kind of synced up for all the things that you'd be doing. Let's see here. Now let's try a 360 game. All right. But as you can see, it really kind of gets everything in at a faster clip. Of course, it's like it's getting it ready because it's coming off of like the external hard drives or whatnot. Once we get into ones that are like on the internal, you'll really start seeing even faster load times because it's actually utilizing the SSD. And that's actually a lot faster than let's turn that down a little bit. Sorry about that if that was blasting you out, but saw it downloaded what you needed pretty quickly, and you can of course mess around with everything going on. Let's see here. Let's take that and place that here. Alright, now we're getting into the Xbox One category. I'll actually kind of mess around with this one a little bit better. Because this one, I've actually... Ooh. Whoops. Kind of mucked with, so I can actually kind of play around a little bit with it. Ugh. And the main thing that I'll be showing off will be Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Alright. Let's see. Oh yeah, there'll be an I'll also show off one of the other kind of like original Xbox games, because I actually have a safe spot that I can actively utilize better. Do. Load. Yes, I would like to load this save. Now, granted, it's been a while since I've played this one. I was doing a certain kind of run where I would like be mucking around, but how fast that loads is just kind of insane. Now, I won't get into like a lot of combat detail with this, because it's kind of just a little bit difficult trying to do it with one hand on a controller. And I don't remember why it's kind of like in this kind of aspect ratio. Hiya! Go, Sebastian, go!
That's his MO. He's somewhere in here.
Yes, he's looking for someone who's done some shady things. But as you can see, it's running pretty nicely. So yeah, there we go. Let's exit this one. Auto HDR. Alrighty then. Let us swappeth. But before that, let us take a digital one. Alright, here. Yeah, I've got a lot of games. Not a lot, but let's go here to Star Wars Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. This one was, of course, a Games with Gold. But this one just kind of blew me away because I had actually just finished a run through recently on it. And I'm just like, this really is able to kind of just bug on through and really load pretty fast. All right, let's... Right, load. Now, of course, this is towards the end of the game, but I mean, look how fast you kind of got into that. And you're just like, wow. Let's see here. How do I do this with one hand, Mom? Alright, let's see if I can work this. Nah, that's gonna be a little bit nutty to try. But you can kind of see how fast it is to get into games. It's just kind of insane. Alright, and then you just quit out. And then you're ready to just buck on through. And you're back to the dashboard where you can see all of your different kinds of things that you can go through. Let's see here. Alright. Now on to the big one. Because that one was just off of an external hard drive and was an old school game. Now we're going to go with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I've been enjoying. It still falls into Ubisoft's usual kind of thing of run around and muck around with the map, but this time you're Viking flavored. And I have enjoyed that. I am still in the beginning stages of the game pretty much, so there's not much more to really tell on it at the moment. That's the whole kind of downside with trying to review these things. You kind of have to finish them to really get a complete handle on them, unless you're pretty much like, oh, I'm doing the same thing over and over again, which kind of is being the case for this. But of course, this is kind of the opening kind of stuff that you usually go through. This one will kind of be the longest one because it just takes a little bit to kind of get into it. But it's a lot faster than what I've usually been used to with just loading the new game. Like, I'll show you the fast traveling and just kind of like walking around a little bit, because if you die, it's not like you're spending 3 minutes kind of waiting for it and everything like that to kind of pop back up. And of course, this is the character, your Viking dude. And look at that, you're already in here.
We told you everything. Won't you let us go? That depends on what happens here.
Yeah, that's a main story mission that I don't want to muck with at the moment. Alright, so as you can see, there's a lot of different stuff that you can go through at Assassin's Creed. So let's pop off to the settlement. Let's see if we can get through any kind of tips. And there's that. I've had fast traveling for other games take vastly more time. And you're just walking around, being a Viking. This is your homestead. Got your blacksmith on the left. And a dog sitting in the road. Got your... What is that? An assassin's bureau. You wouldn't think this would be an assassin's game with Vikings in it. I know. I don't mind the direction that this is going, more RPG style, but they have done more to make it where assassin stealth has been a little bit better rewarded, but you do have to go through the action elements. So if you're more into an assassin-y kind of style, you get it more in this one. But if you're going exclusively for, I want to be an assassin, that's not going to be your thing. Oh, dude, I didn't know that I could actually use those dummies to, like, get my adrenaline back up or whatnot. Well, that's kind of interesting. Let's do another fast travel point just to really get that point home. I mean, it's really kind of strange that we're going to be getting into this kind of realm that we have these helpful hints during loading screens, but they are just going to be so fast that you're gonna have to be more into the codexes of games to get to them because people won't be in loading screens as much. Now, granted, I understand this is the beginning of the next gen, so it's not going to be instantaneous loading, and we'll probably get really super fast loading once we potentially get like other kind of things at the end of the life cycle, better SSDs, better kind of pro versions potentially. But so far, I've been really happy with this because I just get lost more in the gaming. And let's see here. Let us see here. All right. Now, I'm going to do this. And I'll show you how fast it turns off. And as you can hear, that's just the amount of sound that you get from it. You really couldn't hear much going on with it because it's just that quiet. It really is kind of awesome. Now, granted, as I told you before, my externals, for some reason, take longer to kind of shut down. At first, I was a little freaked out and wondering if it was going to be doing anything that would be potentially harmful, but I have not run into any kind of problems with that so far. So that's kind of how fast you can get into all these other kind of different games. I thought it would be better to show you the differences of getting into like Xbox One games, 360 games, and OG games, and then one that is really set up for the Series X, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now, even though I like this and it really works out well, there we go, it's doing its weird kind of thing. It does really hurt that there aren't any really big kind of exclusives that were for the launch. Mainly the only things you were looking for were the ones that were smart delivered, like Valhalla and Watch Dogs Legions and like your Call of Duties or whatnot. So definitely not having Halo Infinite was a problem, but I would rather they make sure that game is good rather than kind of pump it out. And of course, you've also got all these different kind of games that you can play with backwards compatibility. That's why I tended more for the Xbox versus the PlayStation because of the breadth of backwards compatibility that Xbox has got and what they'll potentially be doing in the future. Because they did put that on hold mainly to make sure that this would be able to play all of the Xbox One game library. So we'll see what other kind of ones they are able to kind of put going forward. So with that, you also get Games Pass that you pretty much are going to have to be subscribed to because they're pushing it more frequently. Now, granted, I understand that people would be leery. It's like, I wouldn't really go for that. And at first, I pretty much was that way as well. Now, granted, they are having some interesting deals on like Game Pass Ultimate that bundles gold and whatnot, but it's an interesting kind of service where pretty much for the price of 3 games, you can have this kind of Netflix style place where you can essentially rent games to see if you want to buy them, even play through them all if you want, and if you've got the time and the ability. And I think that's a very good style of what they're doing. Now, I understand that PlayStation is PlayStation Now, but that is more of streaming the game to you, whereas with the Game Pass, you actually download the game fully onto your SSD or hard drive. So that way you've got that one-time internet thing that you got to deal with rather than the whole streaming of a certain game. Now, Game Pass Ultimate does have game streaming with xCloud that you can do on phones and all that kind of stuff as well. But that's more of a they've added that there to give you value add to it rather than having that be built around the whole kind of service. And we'll have to see how that kind of goes for Microsoft, because now, granted, even though I like Microsoft and what they're doing with the Series X, they have made missteps. So if you're looking at it this holiday season being like, do I want a PlayStation 5 or do I want an Xbox Series X or S, whichever one, you have to really look at what your needs are. For me, I'm not into that kind of like, I've got to have the biggest tech. What I'm looking into is, how will this help my gaming or help kind of improve what I'm trying to do as I'm gaming? And that's where this came into the picture, because I'm like, okay, it's got the bigger SSD, it's got the 4K Blu-ray player in it, so that way I can do 4K Blu-ray, and I can pop in the discs that I've got to play the games that I've got. And that's the biggest thing. I am a physical media kind of dude. No, not to knock digital media, but since I do like to have that in physical media, this was the one to kind of go for. And if you are into physical media, this will be good for you. Even if you're not into physical media, if you are going to be heavily into digital games, I would even recommend this still over the Series S. I say that because in order to get in order to make sure that you've got enough storage with certain things, if you want to be able to even have like I was saying, the internal SSD between this and the Series S, you would have to get the Seagate expansion slot. It's essentially, we're going back to memory cards. It's just they're going to be bigger, beefier, kind of strange things. It's weird to think that we're going back to that kind of style, but that's what we are at. And if you got the Series S and the expansion card is like $220, varying depending upon where your region is, give or take rates. You'd pretty much be spending the same amount that you would get for this. Now, at some point, I'll probably do that because, well, depending upon if they increase it, because it's only 1 terabyte of storage. That's why you're kind of like, have to look at it for your own situation, because granted, even though it's price competitive at that point, that is still expensive, and for getting, you'd really want more storage for it. You know, it's like a 2 terabyte, or making kind of higher memory cards are what are going to be needed. God, I'm even calling them cards now. Well, that's pretty much what they're going to be. So the biggest thing is, this would be better for your kind of multi-platform kind of deal. And if you want to get into Xbox Game Pass, all of Microsoft's exclusives are going to be released same day on Game Pass as they're released in store. So if you're like, I don't know if I'm into this franchise, you could get an Xbox, get Game Pass, and then say an exclusive comes around and you're not quite sure what the quality is going to be. So you got yourself subscribed to Game Pass, and there you go. You can check it out, and then you're going to be like, I'm not good with that. Also, if you do get into the Xbox ecosystem, look into Microsoft Rewards, because I know this is going to sound weird, use Bing. I just use it to get the rewards, get the points. You can actually get certain things like a month of Game Pass Ultimate or Game Pass PC or whatnot when they're up on the rewards docket. So you could be like, okay, I'll do this, pump up the amount of rewards I've got, do that, and then you can test it. That would be a great way to do it. Also, you could just get a prepaid card of Game Pass Ultimate if you don't feel like being a subscriber completely to it. There's vast different options that can be looked into to checking out what's going on with these. Now, if you're really into JRPGs and what Sony's exclusives are, I would recommend definitely going with the PlayStation and everything. I mean, I've got nothing against it. It's just usually the exclusives are not as for me as other people. I do enjoy the JRPGs that I've been mucking around with on there, and I still need to look into some more things, but I've been very happy with my choice of Xbox Series X. And if you're looking for it this holiday, I totally feel your pain. I was not sure I was going to be having this because of how holy hell pre-orders had been. I lucked out with Best Buy, but if you need it for like your kids or even for yourself, please refrain from actually doing it with scalpers. Just just wait for more stock to come in. I know that sucks and it's going to sound as shitty advice because you're like, I want it now, and I completely understand that, but don't reward the scalpers and don't give them more money just so that way they're rewarded for their behavior. This, I've definitely gotten the value of the $4.99 that it is, and I've actually been really happy with it because it's faster, it's more responsive with what I'm doing. I feel that it's actually worth the money because I get to play all different kinds of games on it from my library that I've got, both digitally and physically. And if you're interested in it, definitely look up into it more and figure out kind of if it fits with you and if it's got the games that are on there and if your friends play with it, if you play multiplayer. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I've got for this. Let's do this real quick. So, yeah, those are my thoughts and opinions on the Xbox Series X, trying to show you kind of what was going on with it. It's a little bit difficult because of just using my phone and whatnot, and I can't really delve that deeply into certain games, but you could see what was going on with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You can look up some other kind of gameplay footage. It was just to kind of show you how fast it is to kind of just pop something in, play it, and then switch it to anything kind of else. So, those are my opinions on the Xbox Series X. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you like it, if you don't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.